today's permission express my homage in memory of is a birthday of Sa. So we choose this day for this lecture. Uh, and we are assembled here uh, online to recollect his work and the illuminating teaching experience, expertise in the field of anthropology. Uh, Here, uh, Kumkumji is here, and respect to Professor Shubhadra Mitra Channa and Professor Ranjana Rai and all the respected guests here. Uh, Greetings to all of you. We are grateful uh, to him that for him, or Professor Srivastava only, Kolkata Society for Asian Studies could achieve a little experience to work with Anthropological Survey of India. So I mentioned that today we are organizing this third lecture in memory of Professor Vinay Kumar Srivastava, the teaching of anthropology facing the challenges, a tribute to Vinay Kumar Srivastava. Uh, the lecture will be delivered by Professor Shubhadra Mitra Channa. Professor Channa was his colleague in University of Delhi. I am introducing her briefly. Uh, she is a retired professor, Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi in 2016, was the senior vice president of IUAES, International Union of Anthropological and Ethnological Sciences, from 2018 to 2023, and former chair of the Commission on Marginalization and Global Apparate, IUAES 2013 to 2021, and chair of the Commission of Anthropology of Women, IUAES 2009 to 2013. Research interests are in marginalization and identity studies, gender, cosmology and religion, environment and urban communities, and landscape. Publications include Gender is South Asia 2013, Cambridge University Press, Life as a Dalit, edited by with John P. Mancher, Mencher, 2013, The Inner and Outer Selves, 2013, Oxford University Press, and Gender, Livelihood and Environment, edited with Marilyn Porter, 2015, Orient Black Swan. Anthropological Perspectives on Indian Tribes, 2021, Orient Black Swan, and Religious Pluralism in India, Ethnographic and Philosophic Evidence, 1886 to 1936, edited with Lancy Lobo, 2023, Routledge. Recipient of Charles Wells Fellowship, visiting professor to Kyoto 2001, visiting professor MSH Paris 2002, University of Kentucky 2012, visiting professor Center for Afro-Asian Studies, Bahia, Brazil 2018. Taught human rights at the University of Calcutta as a visiting professor also. visiting professor at the universities of Calcutta and Central University, Hyderabad, Kannur University, Kerala, and North Bengal University in India. The president of the Indian Anthropological Association for 5 years and editor of the Journal Indian Anthropologist 2000 to 2014. Editorial board member of MAN, the Journal of the Royal Anthropological Institute, recipient of the S.C. Roy, Delhi University 2016, author of more than 80 scholarly papers. Now, I am just introducing Professor Ranjana Rai, the chairperson of this. Dr. Ranjana Rai is former professor and emeritus fellow, UGC of the Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta. She had her education in Calcutta University and Hawaii University. She has got research experience of 53 years, taught in the Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta since 1974. Excuse- Executive Committee member of the International Union for Prehistoric and Protohistoric Sciences, a body of the human sciences of UNESCO, at present elected as Anthropological Secretary of the
I could bring in the DSA program, Departmental Special Assistance Program from UGC to my department. They were actually telling me what I have to do, and so that our department gets this special assistance program. And he was actually, we all know about him. He was mainly teaching in Delhi University. His education was in Delhi. He was also uh, had done his PhD in King's College, Cambridge, under erudite scholars. And as he also had gone to Hindu College and other colleges for a short while, but his main workplace was Delhi University, Department of Anthropology. And for the last period of his career, he was in Calcutta. So we got to see him closely, almost day by day, because he was also closely associated with Asiatic Society, with us. And for any program, we had 100 years of and Department of Anthropology celebrated there in the Anthropological Survey, and he was always there. And he, to quote Professor Joshi, that he was a versatile writer. And that is really something that it gets into your mind when you think about him, because he had done research on various topics. and he would send me some of his copies of his writing, and then I would comment. And last that I remember, he wrote about those people who were the safaiwalas in old Delhi. They were the cleaners, and they would take those night soil in buckets on their head, and then I would go to the place of disposing them somewhere. And that was wonderful work. And I was really surprised that someone would think about these people and also work on them. And so when he came to Calcutta for some occasion, I told him that it was really something that it touched me, that you should next take up that what kind of diseases they had suffered, because it's not a very nice kind of work. The whole thing they carried on their head and then put somewhere else, and we lived in a very sanitized air. So he said, yes, I would take that, but maybe because of his busy schedule, he didn't couldn't take it up. But that was something really I was very much touched with that one. That's a wonderful work, of course, scholarly work. But then again, you think about that to work among these people, it's really something. So I have, in a very heavy heart, I would request Professor Channa to deliver the talk.
Thank you, Ranjanadi. Like Ranjanadi, I am also in a way, it's a very difficult situation to be delivering a memorial lecture for somebody who was younger. He was 1 year junior to me, and somebody whom I had known almost practically all my life. Anyway, but this is also, I think, this lecture is also a tribute and something which brings all of us together to remember him. And of course, it's not that we need this lecture to remember him. We remember him all the time. But, this is a symbolic gesture, something which as anthropologists we understand very well. Kind of, uh, it is a symbolism, it is a tribute, and it has a meaning in its own place. So, the topic that I had chosen is the teaching of anthropology. Because apart from whatever academic work, writing that Vinay had done, Vinay was always known as an outstanding teacher. And as teachers of anthropology, which of course I have never been taught because he was junior to me. So I've never been taught by him, but I have, you know, inputs from his students, and I have observed him teaching in class, as well as a colleague and also as a teacher. I have shared that experience of what it really means to have taught in that department for so many years, and also being teaching a subject like anthropology. Now, as we know, anthropology is something, a discipline which is very close to our own lives. It is while, and this is the way in which I think uh, anthropology is a living subject. It is not something which is only learned from books, but anthropology is something that we learn from our day to day lives. So, this is what it is all about. It is the life experiences, the behavior of people, the social interactions, our everyday experiences of walking the streets of the city, our everyday experiences of interacting with each other. That is what anthropology is all about. And I think a true teacher of anthropology is successful when he or she is able to relate whatever is written in the book, the theories that we teach, the philosophies that we draw upon our teaching, into this existential reality real life experiences of being human beings in interaction with each other. So it is about human beings. It is the science of humans. It was called, we always laughed at, the title Science of Man and incorporating women.
Yes,
But
this is
now, for our feminist version is to call it the science of human beings. And a second challenge for us had been, and for any teacher, I believe, because teaching is communication. So, communication is a two-way process. What we are telling is also dependent on how we say it, is dependent on who is and who are our students. And I'm saying this because I have personally had a experience of teaching to students other than in India. So I have had students from US where I taught for some time, and I found and it some experiences were actually very comical, some experiences were surprising. That how the same thing or the kind of things that we teach are received in so many different ways. And in this way, I think that when we teach, we should be very, sensitive to what we are teaching and how what we are teaching reaches or is received by those whom we are teaching. Like in anthropology in Delhi University, we get a majority of students who are actually not from Delhi. We get a lot of students from Bihar, from Orissa, from West Bengal, from the Northeast. We have had a variety of students who come from rural areas, from tribal areas, from small towns. And to communicate, to reach out to them, we have often had to make special efforts because, you have this whole class full of students, a majority of them, because Kumkum has also been in our department, Ibha has been, it is not always that the students are very cosmopolitan, they come from very elite, very, uh, third generation or second generation learners also. Sometimes you have, like especially from the northeast, we have been getting, or from the indigenous people, we get students who are maybe first or second generation learners. So the whole, I would the experience of teaching and the is also to be sensitive to the needs of what the students really want from you. And I believe that Vinay was able to communicate in a very beautifully because he was able to come down to the grassroots levels. I remember because, of course, I have not been taught by him, but students used to talk about it. And I still remember one student, a girl student from Bihar, who was very impressed by some of these says because he used to use Hindi or he used to use, different languages, Bhojpuri, Urdu, sometimes telling Urdu couplets, sometimes telling, students in some colloquial language about certain things. And she said that, sir, wow, what beautiful examples he gives. Like one day he told us, भूख लगे तो दीवार भी पापड़ नजर सूख के पापड़ नजर आता है. And I am not that proficient in the local Hindi language, but I was very impressed, and I think this was about 20 years back. I still remember that. भूख लगे तो दीवार भी सूख कर पापड़ नजर आता है. And the students got very interested like that because you could reach out to them. They could say, yes, yes, now we understand that. Now it is. something, which comes from our part of the world or some language that we can understand. Now, and you saw also the syllabus and the kind of things that we teach. Now, in my own experience of teaching anthropology, I have found that, globally, when we interact with Western anthropologists, we are talking so much about post-structuralism, post-colonialism, but and we are talking of, phenomenology and deconstruction. But, and we say that, oh, structural functionalism, it is an ancient, not, no longer suitable for studies. I understand that theoretically, yes, it is not in it is in its classical in a way that we cannot no longer talk of structure, or we can no longer, but still there are, we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. There were, even in classical anthropology, and I am very happy that in our department we never left the groundings, the founding fathers. We always had this course called Rise of Anthropological Theory, and we had courses on kinship. Now, it is here that we find, I found when I was teaching kinship, that even though, like, I remember an American anthropologist asking me, "You people still teach kinship?" And I told him, "Yes, we teach kinship because we in South Asia are still a society that is grounded in kinship. It is a living experience for us. Our children grow up using kinship terms for everyone, as even in our departments. Students are referring to each other as, bhaiya, or difference, and it is translated into respectful kinship terms. No student in, for example, in our department, and as I explained, that our students are not very cosmopolitan. They come from small towns, they come from more traditional backgrounds. They do address their seniors as Didi, as Bhaiya or Dada, that way. And so kinship is very integral. And when I used to teach, say, Radcliffe, when I used to teach principles of kinship, when I used to teach things like joking relationships, merging of alternate generations, these are things that we still find in our day to day lives. And students relate to it. They still understand that Revar Bhabhi is a joking relationship, or grandfather, granddaughter, or grandfather, grandmother, grandson is a joking relationship, and the merging of alternate generations. In Bengali, we say Dadu Bhai. Dadu Bhai is a reciprocal term. This is exactly what Radcliffe Brown used to say, that had said that, merging of alternate generation, first and third generation use reciprocal kinship terms. And these are things when we talk to our students, they smile, they laugh. You ask them in class, can you relate to it? Do you have these things happen? Yes, yes, yes. In our areas also, in our society also, we have these things. We have similar kin terms. We have similar joking relationships. We have similar avoidance relationships everyday in our everyday interactions. So when we are talking, we can say, okay, we are modernizing anthropology, we are getting futuristic, we are talking. But at the same time, we must remember that the students that we are teaching, our own societies, we still, these things make sense. They still exist. Things, like religion. When you are talking of religious beliefs, even gender stereotypings, when I used to teach gender in my classes, gender stereotyping was something which people could relate to, yes. And, most of my gender classes, a lot of it came from as interaction. When students used to tell us, yes, when we were growing up, girl students used to tell us that when we were growing up, this is the kind of things we were told, just still being told that you are a girl, you cannot do this. When I was growing up, my mother never allowed me to ride a cycle. She said, no, 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 girls don't ride bicycles. You will never. But you see, these were, but today, of course, all girls do. So changes come over. So you can really, I mean, you can go to the classroom and start talking about these things. And there you will find that when you come to actual theory, once the students have internalized the fact that life experiences have gone into theory making, they will be able to understand and grasp the theory and internalize it rather than simply mugging it up from the book directly. That is not the way students will remember what you have taught them. Then, when, for example, when developed this course on rise of anthropological theory, now when we are talking of evolutionism, it is rather unnecessary for to ask the students to mug up the stages that Morgan gave. Those are not important. They don't exist anymore. We know that those stages were just not practical. I mean, they are not applicable. They don't have any meaning in today's world. But what is meaningful is to contextualize the theories into their historical and social relevance. What the evolutionists said is not as important. To some extent, yes. But how what they said came out of a particular social and historical context. How, for example, as I was reading these, seminal archival work, and my next book on colonial anthropology is in press, how the evolutionary theory was used by the colonial power holders to legitimize their rule. So the concepts such as primitive, concepts such as culture lag, the concepts such as stage by stage evolution, how these justified colonization, legitimized it. Because we must remember that when colonization was taking place, those who were perpetuating this dominance, those people who were actually exploiting and marginalizing the people in their colonies. In fact, to some extent, genocide was taking place. So many millions of people were actually exterminated because of colonization. Yet, those very people were doing it in at the same time. If you see the historic, if you see a history of Europe, and if you see the history of colonization, the philosophical history of Europe was the time of the Renaissance, time of enlightenment, time when they were talking of universal brotherhood. Anthropology, the evolutionary theory, actually was trying to deconstruct racism, saying that the psychic unity of mankind, that every society has the same potential, that all societies can go through the same. So in a way, they were trying to be humanists. They were trying to say that all human beings are racially the same. And this theory was turned on its head to justify colonization, to say that we are trying to actually doing a good thing. I mean, there are colonial, that colonization was not colonization is beneficial for the colonies, for the people, because what we are doing? We are bringing our superior culture to them in order to speed up this process of a cultural evolution, to make them jumpstart, from primitive to savage, they can become civilized because we are here and we are colonized them and we are going to educate them, we are going to spread our culture. No matter in that process if we kill more than half of them. So, this these are the things that need to be taught in the classrooms to make these students appreciate what is the context of these theories, why structural functionalism, what was the reason this, evolutionary theory was just legitimation. Structural functionalism comes after that to now whitewash the effects of colonization. So no longer, so now we are given these constructed, beautiful descriptions of societies that are so much in equilibrium, whereas the actual societies were completely disintegrated through the process of colonization. You know, the criticism of Radcliffe Brown's Andaman Islanders is that that is a construct which he got just from interviewing a few people when, at the time of his writing this book, most of the Andaman Islanders had died out. They were decimated because of the impact of colonization. And you see, in asides, in other places, for example, Radcliffe Brown has mentioned that all that rituals about, death rituals, of course, but birth rituals. He never saw a real birth because the population had come to such a low level that hardly any births were taking place because clans had died out. Because no longer the people could follow the rules of marriage, the marriage rules by which they could actually find a mate and produce a family. So, this is not something which is written in Andaman. When you read it, it is a beautiful literary piece about, the function of rituals, about the function of puberty rituals, when in actual times no children were being born, no puberty rituals were taking place. So these were all constructed from interviews. And interviews also when the person is sitting in a tent wearing a topi, wearing a hat, and he's calling people over to his tent and interviewing them. So there is already an established power hierarchy where people are, if you read Hammondorf's books, Hammondorf was supposed to have been a friend of the Nagas, but they he himself writes that they used to address him as Ang meaning a chief. And he says that in trying to supply him with his food, the village practically ran out of chicken because they were probably trying to feed him chicken every day, but they didn't have so many. I mean, they didn't have a chicken factory like they have today. There was no commercial production of chicken. The chicken was just household, being raised in the households, couple, two or three, four, five numbers. And the village actually ran out of chicken trying to feed Hammondorf. So these things are something which need to become alive in the classroom. This is to tell the context of theory. Theories, because these are social theories. These are theories about people. These theories are also products of certain power hierarchy. When we talk of deconstruction is not simply a theory. Deconstruction is a theory contextualized in the deconstruction of power hierarchies in the post colonial world. Because Europe lost power, Eurocentrism then became a point of criticism. Because This Eurocentrism was not recognized during the colonial period. It was only in the post colonial period that now we are talking about Eurocentrism. When we are talking of decolon or kind of decentering what we call as the male white supremacist look of knowledge production. That is possible, you know. When even when we read anthropology, how the have come up. Critics have come up at certain historical points. Annette Weiner's criticism of Malinowski. Now, we cannot blame Malinowski that his point of view was totally male centric because he was brought up, he possibly have conceived of any other point of view. It was only in the 70s, late 60s, when feminism was emerging that the male space for a feminine perspective to even make his presence felt. And she was able to see that the women's work or the women's world was neglected, was not even observed because to a person totally socialized in a male world, the female world was invisible. So, the important part of teaching of anthropology specifically, though I would say, if we really broaden it out, maybe the same things could be, and I'm sure it is being taught in the same way as as perceived in other disciplines as well, including the hard sciences like physics and chemistry, because we do have a deconstruction of physics from particle physics to quantum physics. Quantum physics is of a very different nature. It is again a deconstructed worldview that we are talking of, a deconstructed vision of the universe that we are talking of. So, content of what we teach is not simply to be interpreted from what is written in the syllabus. Because in India, at least, we have not yet developed the kind of detailed syllabus teaching that is being developed in the West, where you have to identify every reading, every portion of a reading, everything that the detailed content is given. Here we also, and this is in a way it is also good because then good teachers can interpret the syllabus in ways that they can, make it more meaningful. So teachers like Vinay Srivastava, and also, uh, give bringing in. I mean, when I talk of syllabus, it was Vinay, and of course there were others like Dr. Channa. Even I did. We have brought in new content into the syllabus. Vinay introduced new papers, medical anthropology, urban anthropology. Dr. Channa introduced ecological anthropology, psychological anthropology. Now, that way, Delhi University was in fact pioneer. I remember people coming and asking us for our syllabus for, say, ecological anthropology because we were the first to introduce. We were the first and probably the only first department to introduce psychological anthropology. Medical anthropology, the first. Urban anthropology, I still don't know whether how many departments are teaching urban. This was introduced by Vinay Srivastava. I introduced gender, comparative study of gender. So, our efforts at introducing new, um, uh, um, topics into the syllabus. This was a joint effort, and this was something which has led our departments, cultural anthropology and even physical anthropology. They also introduced many new topics, and so this is how the department flourished, and became a kind of a place where students got, I think, very good education. I don't know, but at the response that still Vinay has from all his ex-students, I'm sure they benefited a lot from his teachings. It and teaching is not simply within the classroom. And for us anthropologists, we have this excellent opportunity of taking students to the field. And there I have had personal experience of working with Vinay in the field. And and it was something which for me also, it was a learning experience. I remember how he picked out on every small things and then looked at the pedagogical possibility, the possibility of doing work. For example, we went to the village shop, small shop, and he said, "Look, Subhadra, one student could come and work on this shop. There are so many things to learn from here about the village. What things here, how are taking place, how the credit and debit system is working. There is so much to, and we had such a long discussion. I don't know if anybody actually worked on that village shop, but I still remember the discussion I had with Vinay about the anthropological, the research possibilities, the analytical possibilities of studying a village. So these, then how you interact with the students in the field. And this is something where I think nobody can fall the basics of being a teacher, to be just and equal to all your students. And unfortunately, this is something which, some teachers do have this tendency of, paying more attention to some student, out the weak students. But with Vinay, I had seen he would actually, if at all he had to pay more attention, he would pay more attention to the weaker student. He would pay more attention to the student who came from a very marginal. He sometimes he actually mentored some of these students. He made special efforts, and he also made them feel comfortable, like talking to them in their own language. Hindi में थोड़ा colloquial हिंदी में बात करना, bring in a little bit of a Bhojpuri with, and he made them feel comfortable, made them feel that they could interact and they could also do something in life. It is not that because you don't have a background of English, having we are studying in an English medium, or you are coming from a rural or from a marginalized area, you have no potential. I have tried to do the same thing with my students also. I don't know how much I've succeeded. They would be able to say more. But this fairness, this equality, this ethics of treatment of students is something which Vinay had always followed. I have never seen him being, more favorable to some, less favorable to anybody who came to his room. He was open for anybody to come and discuss anything they wanted. He never bothered who this student is, from rich or poor or whatever, and went out of his way to help them wherever he could, especially if they had some weak area, some weak point. And this, I think, is a very integral aspect of being a teacher. Does not mean you just go and, narrate something in class and come out. Teacher means that you mentor. You are a mentor. You are a nurturing person. You have to nurture the good qualities. You have to bring out what is the potential in your students. Unless you are able to bring out the potential, unless you are able to support them where they need support, I don't think you can be a good teacher. Vinay did this extremely well. He was so supportive, so nurturing of his students, of his PhD students. And sometimes I used to even disagree with him. I said, no, that student doesn't seem to be having, that PhD thesis is not so good. He used to say, Subhadra, this is one step. Let them take this step. हो जाने दो PhD, कोई बात नहीं, doesn't matter, थोड़ा नहीं है अच्छा. But maybe he will do something or she will do something better in life once they have this, you know, asset with them. Like, he was, in a way, very generous, I would say. Generous that, okay, let me give this gift to the student. Let me give this, let that person have this degree, even though that person may not be the best, may not be the really at the top. Maybe there is some lot of flaws with their PhD thesis. Let it pass. Let them get the degree. Let them get. I mean, that empathy, that generosity, that sensitiveness to the needs. Chalo, person is not coming from such a good family, needs financial, हो जाने दो, job मिल जाएगी. These are the kind of things that I have seen with him. Where at times he used to even overstep the boundary of, academic excellence. कि नहीं, हमेशा ही academic excellence नहीं भी है. चलो, that person may have certain needs. That person may need a job. Let me help that person. So, that a personality which was holistic, a personality which incorporated not just intellect, not just dry intellect, a personality which incorporated sensitivity, generosity, humanism, an even getting a telephone connection for my home. In those days, it used to be very difficult to get telephone connection. Everybody didn't have a phone. In those days, to get an MTNL, about, I'm talking about 30 years back or more, 40 years back, he would even go out of his way, try to get me a telephone connection and things like that. So as a teacher, when I pay respects to him, I do not think of him only as an, I think of him as a human being. And this is a lesson which I think all young teachers who are here, I have seen some names who are young teachers here. Please remember, a good teacher also has to be a humane teacher. Try to be humane with your students. Try to teach it, look upon them as human beings. Look upon them as people who are capable, on them not just as to look at also my of course. I'm not saying that I have really learned, but which is something which we as friends, as colleagues, we shared with each other. We used to often talk. And he used to tell me, you know, because he used to always say, I can ask you for something. This is something we were the kind of friends where when I asked Vinay for something, he would always do it. And when he asked something, he said, I can take that advantage. कि तुम ले लो. Like he would come and tell me, इसको ले लो. मेरे पास सीट नहीं है. This particular student needs, प्रॉब्लम है कहाँ जाएगी बेचारी तुम ले लो so these kind of things we used to have these small interactions backstage interactions with each other and which of course at that time we did not tell our students but now it's the time to talk about those things that when we used to often talk about their welfare their life chances how to help them and support each other, ऐसा करते हैं, ये करते हैं. So I think this is a part of the teaching. So today I talked about teaching of anthropology. So the teaching does not mean just books and lessons. Teaching means a lot more things. And I think Vinay was a very good example of a humane teacher. And that is probably today we are here, so many of us are here to remember it so fondly. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shubhadra Chanda, for really this wonderful lecture about beginning of teaching of anthropology up to the teaching that Professor Srivastava was giving to his student. Not only that about colonialism and decolonialism, but at the same time, we have put up the type of teaching that Professor Srivastava had done, and also the student friendliness that he had, and how he felt for all kinds of students, not only the brilliant ones, but those, even he found out that the possibility that was there, even among the students who were not so bright, maybe in other sense that we can, academic sense that we can say. And it was really good tribute, and thank you very much. And I think I will give the uh, give over to Shobhishta and for vote of thanks to Priyasha.
May I please put in a little word? This is the Department of Anthropology, Delhi University, would vouch for the fact that I, Vinay Srivastav, was always sir to them, to his students, but I was the quintessential Didi. Be it Sumedh Patnaik, Sukant Chaudhary, Vijay Kumar, Satish Chandra, they have lived in my house. They have, I have attended to them when they were ill. So this is the kind of things that about Professor Srivastav that Subhadraji was talking about. So I'm Didi. You ask, anyone in the department, and they will never refer to me as Mrs. Srivastav. So I was always Didi. So there was some kind of a family relationship that Professor Srivastav established with his students.
Right.
In
You were real Arthurian in that
fact,
sense.
yeah. In fact, today, Sumedh Patnaik, who's HOD, Delhi, anthropology department, he got dressed up for his wedding in my house with my assistants. And we were also excited as if our son was getting married. So, and another thing, Vinay used to say, sometimes it was a difficult topic, and we would discuss how to address it and how to do it. And then he would say, कुमकुम, अगर मुझे नाचना गाना भी पड़ा तो ये समझाने के लिए मैं वो भी कर लूंगा. So this is the kind of teaching, that he was, that the teacher that he was, and so many of them remember that on field trips he would sing, and I mean, he couldn't dance at all, but he tried. But he would sing beautifully, and
Yeah, he is.
yeah. Since this
And
morning, I've
that's
been
what I said,
feeling
use the language
students
that
with
they
this.
understand.
Absolutely. But I'm sorry, he was in Kolkata for 3 years. He had a teacher also, Mr. Mondal, but and lived in Chittaranjan Park for 30 years, but uh, didn't really know Bangla well. Although he sang in Bangla, he sang Tagore songs, but uh, he got confused between many things. And I was told later that the lady thought that he was telling her that he loved her, though he was telling, I mean, he meant that he liked the way she worked. So instead of saying, তোমার কাজ আমাকে ভালো লাগে, he would say, he probably said to her, আমি তোমাকে ভালোবাসি. So I was told by the lady herself, and
That's
I'm
funny.
glad he would have got it from me had he been there. But anyway, so this was the kind of, yeah, and all the, yeah, everybody remembers that he taught by example. So he taught anthropology by being a very good anthropologist
Hello,
himself.
Sharmila.
Sharmila.
Hi.
So this is on a very lighter note, but he was my teacher. He taught me anthropology when I was interviewed for an MPhil in anthropology. He was the first historical anthropologist of Delhi University. There were 7 people in the panel, and I remember 2 of them asking me which books I had read. And I said, I read the Encyclopedia of Anthropology. But they said, there is no such thing. I said, there is.
You.
Professor Vinay Kumar Srivastava was the encyclopedia that I consulted. And so he was my teacher.
Yes.
And on our trips, we would go to London. So it used to take 6 hours. He would always be teaching me. I still have those notes. And so because of him, I actually, so this is the, the kind of teacher he was. Always teaching in whatever way he could. And in fact, Subhadraji was quoting Malinowski. For my interview, I was asked, how is history related to anthropology? I said, I married the anthropologist. Maureen married the anthropologist. And they said, no, no, this is a very frivolous answer. Okay. So I said, well, as she said, that history is the study of man, embracing woman, the rest is history. So this is what he taught me and what I imbibed from him. So he was not only my partner in life, he was also my partner in academics. He was, we consulted each other when we had to give lectures, and he would always say, I think Weber would remember, who is the audience? That is a
That
quintessential
is very
question.
important. Who is the
The
audience?
essence. Who is listening?
Right.
Who are
That's
you
what I
speaking
said, that the student
That's
whom
exactly
you are teaching is very important.
very true. And today, so many of his students are here, whom he taught about 40 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I
And
saw some.
that, I think, speaks volumes for his
volumes.
humanitarianism,
Yeah.
his love for them and their love for him. And I'm very, very grateful. I can see so many.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you so very much. Rachana ji and Subhadra ji, as usual, was at her very best. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
I mean, it sounded more like a eulogy,
And she was nice to hear
really.
personal things. Thank
Ji.
you very much.
And
Thank you very
Sharmila's here, and
Uh,
Minnie. Minnie was a
I'm from,
student.
just a
Yes,
minute.
Sharmila.
I'm from the first batch
Yeah,
that he taught.
Sharmila, I can see.
Thank
And
you so much. And
this
she's
was
here.
1984 when he used to come from Hindu college to teach
Yes.
us tribe and peasantry primarily.
Yes, yes. And I
And
remember
in my
Eric Stokes.
MSc,
I mean,
he introduced us to urban anthropology. So
Yeah, that's
when ma'am, Subhadra ma'am was talking about urban anthropology, we were one of the first ones to hear from him. So we have absolutely fond memories of Dr. Srivastava. We can never, never, ever forget him.
I must admit to
Yes.
one student that whom I met in over so many years would tell me that sir always somehow brought you into
Yes.
any lecture, no lecture went without mentioning with the auras, but we give shades to everybody else who comes to us, comes under us. So,
so true.
like that, teachers are
Thank you,
like
madam. Now
Thank
we
you
are
very
at
much.
the
Thank
end
you.
of this
yes.
Now we will
session.
yes,
On
Uh,
behalf of the Kolkata Society for, excuse me,
yes,
all of
Harsha
you
is going to give.
yes. So, on behalf of the Kolkata Society for Asian Studies, I, Dr. P.R. Shibharusha, the Assistant Professor of the Department of Museology, would like to thank Professor Dr. Subhadra Mitra Chana, formerly of the Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi, and the former President, Indian Anthropological Association, and elected Vice President of the International Union of Anthropological and Ethnological Sciences for delivering the lecture, The Teaching of Anthropology Facing the Challenges, a tribute to Vinay Kumar Srivastava. Thank you, ma'am, for the enlightening lecture you have kindly delivered this evening. We are extremely humbled and benefited with the discussion this evening. We'd also like to thank Professor Ranjana Rai, former head and Professor Emeritus, Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta, who is also the Vice President of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies. And she's also the Chief Editor of the Journal of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies. Thank you very much, Didi, for kindly chair the session and being with us. Thanks to Professor Kumkum Srivastava ma'am as well for being with us this evening. Thank you very much. Our thanks